Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Every once in a while, we have to bring out the big dog.
Yeah.
Oh, God help us. It's time for Danny Unleashed. Sponsored by Easton Roofing, where integrity matters. Go to eastonroofing.com for more.
That's right. Danny Clinkscale, little Danny Unleashed, brought to you by our friends at Easton Roofing. Kansas City's best when it comes to your roof is Easton Roofing. You can find them online at eastonroofing.com, commercial or residential. Easton Roofing has you covered. Whether you are just kind of wondering, kind of curious, maybe need an inspection, get an estimate, those are free at Easton Roofing. They work all over the metro, including Lawrence and Topeka. No payments collected until you're 100% satisfied. Easton Roofing. Been up on my roof, been up on my mom's roof. They're the only folks I will trust. Founded on integrity. That's Easton Roofing, where integrity matters. Online at eastonroofing.com. If you got a question right now, call 913-257-5426. That colder weather is when the problems in your roof will really end up being an issue. You get water in there, it freezes, it expands the problem, and then it sucks, and the weather's brutal. So if you got questions, get estimates. They're free at Easton Roofing. Danny, how are you, buddy?
Doing great. All refreshed. Excellent vacation. Went very nicely. One thing after another that was fun. So
really?
Just great.
Well, good.
High school reunion. Did some boating. Went to Martha's Vineyard.
Oh, wow.
Saw my nephew play a soccer game.
Are you a sailor? Were you out sailing?
No, it was a motorboat, and I was not driving.
No, you weren't. Okay.
But there was a funny incident there.
Do you like to motorboat, Danny?
No, I don't. I don't.
Dynamite drop in, Kay.
So we go.
You old sailor,
we
you.
ride the boat across to Martha's Vineyard, and we are docking. And so John, my good friend, and I have to get out and tie up the rope. So he hands his cell phone to his wife.
So John's not driving either?
He was driving the boat, yeah.
Oh, but he's going to jump out and rope it up, too?
Well, I was
quite the help.
I was first, and then he came out also, so at each end of the boat. So he gave his wife his phone, and she put it in her little pocket of her little thing she was wearing. And as my wife saw the whole thing, I didn't see it. As she's leaning forward to get out of the boat, the phone comes out of her pocket, slides down the deck, the whatever you call the bow. My wife said it looked like a trout slithering on the bow of the boat into the briny deep, never to be found again. So this lady is a really nice woman, and was in her career. She's retired now. She was in many roles as a nurse, but she was an ER nurse at one point in time. So when disasters are happening, she's quite calm. And so she looks up at John and I and says, "John, your phone's in the water." Just deadpan like that with her very thick Boston accent. "John, your phone's in the water." And
what did John say?
He wasn't happy, but, it was probably good for Mary Ellen that we were there.
Yeah.
Because we were just starting a few hours on the vineyard, getting lunch and everything. So, but he did spend the rest of the next 24 hours while we were there just occasionally dropping in something like, "Oh, well, I'd check in on the traffic here on the road, but I don't have a phone.
My phone's in the water." The water.
So anyway, he got a phone the next day, and everything was great. But he was concerned. He was concerned that somebody actually was going to be scoobying around down there and find the phone and get his information or whatever. I said, that phone is dead.
I don't think where they dock the boats at Martha's Vineyard is prime scuba territory.
No, and it was pretty deep water right there, even next to it.
Not exactly Cozumel.
But the guy he has a boat timeshare, which seems to be the best way to buy a boat. I mean, it's this company, and you can go literally.
So you can get a lot bigger boat for a lot less because you don't have to have it the whole time.
Right, and also you can go to all these locations they have around the country and just pay for the gas, get the boat, and
wow.
off you go.
That sounds pretty
so
cool.
the other guy at the where we came back to didn't help the situation at all, because he decided to tell a story of some guy who dropped his phone in the water, and his father came back like 4 hours later and fished it out of the bottom of the sea, and it was still working. And so he tells, I said, you didn't really need to tell that part of the story, buddy. I told him his phone was dead, which I
now we could all move on. Now he wants to go back and fish around for 4 or 5 hours and see if he can get the phone out.
Anyway, between that and the reunion and family time, it was just a great time.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear it.
But the phone was in the water.
Yeah, it was in the water, and it ain't coming back.
No.
All right, well, good to know. What kind of chances do you give the Royals in New York, Danny?
Well, I think somebody asked me this the other day, percentage chance, and I think I just flippantly tried to come up with a figure, and I said 38%. I said I'll give them a 38% chance to win the series.
The Yanks are minus 200 in the first game.
I think I saw a number that was even higher, 215. I think I just saw, but
I think it might have been 202 or 206, something like that on FanDuel when I looked a minute ago. I think that's a bit of an overlay, and somewhat like, well, there are a lot more Yankee fans than Royals fans, and they're going to look at the Royals and they didn't score.
Right.
So I think it is a bit of an overlay, but I do think it's an uphill battle in Game 1.
I think it's a very uphill battle in Game 1. I think Michael Walker could be quite good and give you 5 2/3 of 3-run baseball, which for the Royals right now sounds like a loss. The Royals, I even tweeted this out. With their drive to secure a pennant spot, a playoff spot, and they're winning a playoff series, they have scored a lusty 23 runs in their last 12 games total. Does that ever happen? I even added you. I guess you didn't see it. I said, try to find out if anybody's ever done that, Curtis.
Yeah, that's
driven to a playoff spot and won a series at less than 2 runs per game.
Yeah, that's not easy.
It's not, but you got pitching, you got a chance.
Agreed, and I think that's...
And they got a hot bullpen. Now, will it stay hot? This isn't like these guys have been doing the job all year. Now, Urseg's generally been pretty darn consistent, so they got him. But some of the other guys who've been just lights out have been inconsistent, but maybe they're just in good form right now.
Well, after Game 1 on Tuesday, Brian McCrae came on with us when we were doing kind of post-game, and he said when he got there, everybody in Baltimore was like, well, this team's not going anywhere. We blew the season, should have won the division. We're looking forward to next year. And I think the fact that it was, they upped the attendance from 36 to 38, but like 5,000 empty seats at 36. At 38, it's 3,000 empty seats. It looked more like 5,000 empty seats to me at the opening game. Or no, was that the second game?
Second game, I
second
think.
Game.
Yeah, first game looked like
second game of a playoff game. Right? And it's not like they're the Braves. Like, remember the Braves were starting to not sell out? Like the early
because they were
rounds?
there every year.
Because they were there every single year. This is the second year that they're in there after having a horrible down 100-loss type run, just like the Royals, and their fans are already like, well, this isn't good enough. Like, really?
Yeah, and they have an exciting team now. They haven't played exciting baseball for months, but
I think the fans are an indication of the team mindset, and I think Baltimore was ready to die. They were ready to be put to bed. That is not the New York Yankees right now.
No, I don't think so. I think no matter what kind of market you have, be it Philadelphia or Chicago or whatever, there's no pressure and no intensity to win anywhere in the country more than New York. Now, maybe in baseball, Boston might rival it. I think maybe, but I think even that's maybe a little more positive. And the Yankees haven't won big in a long time, so I do think there's pressure on, and good pressure. I think that they'll be there, they'll be loud, they'll be ready to root on their team. But I also believe that the Yankees know that losing to the Royals in your first series after a good season would be a failure. That would be deemed a failure by their fan base, certainly.
Yeah, I think with their payroll, losing in the first round of any playoffs is a failure.
Right.
Right? Like that's not acceptable.
Right. Well, every time there's a high-profile free agent, you absolutely have a chance to get him, and maybe half the time you do. and a lot of times maybe the guy just doesn't want to play in New York. It's about the only reason you don't. Then, yes, you should be competing for championships all the time, no question.
Yeah, and do you buy that the Yankees' rotation is this disaster? The way I hear other people trying to tell it?
No, it's not a disaster. The thing that is weird is that maybe the person who's most typifies that is Carlos Rodon, who has been just absolutely schizophrenic. I mean, on the season, he's struck out way more than innings pitched. He has a reasonably good ERA below 4, but for 2/3 of the games, he's been Cy Young, and for the other third, he's been sayonara. I mean, he's been awful. So maybe you get the awful Rodon on that day, but Nelson Cortez has been consistent, and Garrett Cole's back, and he's pitched great since he came back, and he has a great postseason track record. So, no, I do not deem that.
I don't either, because I was like, oh, the Yankees rotation, their rotation. I mean, I think even nationally, that's kind of the theme that's out there, because they had a few bad starts, but it's like, you got to remember, we start with the Yankee expectations. Right? And the Yankees' expectations are that they'll be the best.
Right.
And so, okay, it's
and
not,
Luis Gil he's had a good season
fine
too.
Yes. I mean, when you look at these, like I always think WHIP is a better indicator of how a guy's pitched. If you want just some of the more common ones that don't get into, a lot of any kind of mathematical equations. It's just a couple of ads in a division. But Carlos Rodon, 1.22. Nestor Cortez, 1.15. Marcus Stroman, he's the guy that struggled, 147. Right. Luis Gil, 119. Garrett Cole, 113.
And even Clark Schmidt,
118.
Right.
It's not just a free pass around the bases, and the Royals can't get on base against, the Orioles.
Right, who do have
Burns,
struggles in
no
their
problem.
No,
but
he's
their bullpen and Eflin. I heard say, Eflin's a good. Eflin is a jag. He's a legit major league starting pitcher.
Right.
But that's it.
But just to give you an example, you just put a number on the struggles they had while having success. 7th team ever to win back-to-back postseason games while scoring a total of 3 runs. And only 2 of the others occurred with the DH. The Guardians 2 years ago and the A's against the Orioles back in 1974. That's how rare it is to do what they've done. That won't happen in New York.
Now, I will listen to people talk about their bullpen, the Yankees' bullpen. It has not been consistent this year. They've had to change closers. But they've got some arms out there, too. And they also, whether you want to do it or not, that just depends. It's always an argument about that. They have, as we mentioned, guys who probably aren't going to start in, Gil and Schmidt and potentially Stroman, who can pitch in relief. So... yes, I think the Royals face an uphill battle, but you go out there and the other team doesn't score. Obviously you have a chance. And if the other manager is going to pitch to Bobby Witt with bases open, which I would think that maybe Aaron Boone learned a lesson, then we'll see.
I do think the Royals get a break with the extra off day because it allows them to go. Have they announced Lugo for Game 3 yet, or no? They still haven't.
Yes.
Oh, they have.
Yes, they did.
So it allows them to go Waka, Reagans, Lugo, Waka, Reagans. Getting just those 3 going, I think is a real perk. And I think if they didn't have that extra off day, they probably would have to dip into Singer or Marsh. And I want no part of Singer in Yankee Stadium.
No, and I think the way it shakes out, they could potentially start Reagans on short rest
Except for he's terrible.
Maybe like an opener.
He's the guy that's better when he gets extra rest.
Right. Yes, he is.
That's why he goes in Game 2.
Right.
But they could have pushed him up to Game 1. But
I'm fine with Waka pitching. He's been great.
If I said to both of you, with a Royals perspective, right? You're not a Royals fan. You're an Astros fan.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, there's going to be a Game 5 in this series. Would you take it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, yeah. In baseball, it's a funny game. Going into this postseason, as an Astros fan, I absolutely would have rather played the Royals. And actually, I think they might have beat the Royals because the Royals didn't score any runs. But, they could have shut down the Astros, too. But the Tigers are hot. I mean, and they've got mojo, and it didn't matter to them when the Astros came back, and they're visiting ballpark, and they just put it right back on them against one of the best closers in